Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here and thanks for checking out my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell for new episodes. You can also find Shine Without Shame on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Without knowing it, I didn't use that word so much, shame. But I do now, just because I'm okay with it, a lot more comfortable with just using that word, being transparent with it. But I really do believe it's not linear. You know, I believe it's like it comes in waves, it comes and goes, and small, big. But it's just like when it comes, like, are you gonna run away from it, or are you gonna address it? Are you going to, And I think it takes courage, right, to address it, and that's why I love fighting so much, because it's like I don't have to, but for some reason I want to. And that curiousness is enough. Because, like I always say, I started off, sharing about, the trauma that I experienced, and, being a young person experiencing suicide. And it's like that hurt so much. But then even when I got past that, I'm still living. There's still pain, and that's why I don't really consider myself Buddhist, but the principles of Buddhism really helped me, because they talk a lot about pain. They talk a lot about suffering. The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama really saved my life during my depression, because I would read. I think he even starts off the book talking about, everyone, comes into the world, with this is just paraphrasing what he said, with good intentions, like he believes that people come in good, but it's what influences you that takes you on a different path. Right. So it's coming back home. It's coming back to what brings you goodness. But then you cannot deny that there's pain, that there's suffering. So for me, it's like, once I accepted pain and suffering, and I could lean into it, like, okay, so it's just like boxing. It's like, I used to watch boxing and go, how do you avoid getting punched? Until I understood the nature of fighting and boxing. You're gonna get hit. And then I started doing it and I got hit, and it's like, that hurt. What can I do to not let it hurt? But just by opting in, just by saying I'm playing, I'm gonna get hurt. Now, you learn strategy, you learn tools, and you practice it. So the difference between getting smashed, like Mike Tyson knockout, to graze, to tap, to nothing. That's the work. And that's what I love about martial arts and boxing, because, like I always tell people, the jump rope is my Zen. Because when I hear that, and then when I mess up, or quote unquote mess up, like, like I have to do all this, like, is it messing up? Well, let me find, so my process for that is, I learned this from a YouTube. When I am struggling with my jump roping, I'll just go back to the basics. Slowly throw the rope over you and step over it. Step over it. Okay. Now, your ego might go, well, that's not good enough. Like I should be doing jump rope like Floyd Mayweather Jr., where he can talk and have a long conversation on a podcast and still jump rope, right? No, you're not Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is Floyd Mayweather Jr. because he trained, he did what he does. What are you going to do? Okay, let's start from the very basic. 1, 2, right? But I know that I'm way more confident than that, and I can do. Let's go back. Zen, let's turn this off. Turn this off. Okay, can we go? Oh, yeah. Okay. You know? Oh, okay, that's enough. Let's come back tomorrow. Let's do more. You know? Or let's come back tomorrow and let's fail again and see what what new surprise comes. Right? It's just putting in that work. It's just putting in that daily effort. Some days are better than others, but I'd rather opt in than opt out, because the opting out is that previous, me. You suck, you failure, you loser, you suck, you're not enough. Like nobody. Well, I never felt nobody loved me. I shouldn't say that, but because I always had a great support system. But especially when you're depressed, you do feel like nobody loves you. Right. So I've never been in that space for a very long time. But like I said, now I'm with my partner and different things rise up to the surface. So I'm learning how to be the healthy partner that she needs based on her programming. And that's hard. Mm-hmm. Because I want to be myself. I told you from day one in our first date, I want you to be yourself. And now we're arguing because, and she reminds me, you said to be myself. I say, you're right, I did. Uh-oh. What's the work I got to do? Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm reading, I'm talking to people, other couples, talking to other men. But I'm also dissecting in myself, like, okay, why do I feel that way when she says this? Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I've just never experienced this before. Let me experience it a lot more. Let me be in that uncomfortable space a lot more. So eventually it's like, what? It's not that bad. But the other thing I wanted to say is forgiveness. I didn't mention that. A part of my journey accepting like I guess transformation or healing, again, it's still ongoing. Every day is progress. But one thing that was reminded of me was forgiveness. So whether forgiveness to myself for not having the answers and just, okay, I didn't have the answers, let's move forward. Forgiving my parents for the way that they, like you said, they tried their best. I remember one particular evening, I was having a conversation with Orpheus about like I was just shouting, we were having a donut and I was like, I want to be a man that leads. I want to be somebody who helps people. I want to, and then this other voice of me would be like, but I don't know how, because I grew up around men that never shouted out that they were leaders. And maybe I might have had a bias towards the fact that they weren't quote unquote leaders. And then I love my mentor because of this, because he said this in the most loving and encouraging, and as Orpheus does, he said, but, and I was talking about my dad, for example, I was like, my dad, I never saw my dad lead. That's not to say that he wasn't a leader, but I never saw him lead the way that I want to lead. And I love this story because I think a lot of people, it's so important for them to forgive the people that they love. But he said to me, people don't have to lead only in the front. He said, maybe your dad is leading from the back. Maybe he's leading in the middle somewhere. But here's the problem. Society only shows you the leaders in the front. Oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday, the quarterbacks, right? No one ever listens to the lineman that injures their knee, their body, they're icing it day in and day out. They don't get the spotlight. When it comes to war, it's the front lines. Yeah, they sacrifice, but what about the other people who are sacrificing? What about the other people who are living in fear? What about other people who when we're going back to like my father, maybe he's not feeling enough. So once he said that to me, I realized this beautiful balance. And I didn't have that before. And I think a lot of us, as we get older, we struggle with that, that our parents are getting older. Life has changed. The definition of who they are has changed. So what helped me was recognizing his power. Like my father is a beautiful man because he was there for us. He still is. He may not, he had to learn how to express his emotions given our culture and his upbringing. But I had to look into his story. I had to look into who my father was, and I unpacked that for him and for me and go, oh, you're not leading because no one ever, you didn't have mentors. You didn't have strong role models. You didn't have strong male figures. You also didn't have strong female figures to say, hey, it's okay to be this way. So, but that doesn't mean that I should quiet myself either. Because I cannot shine the way that I need to shine if I don't pay attention to my needs, or as my mentor would say, needs, desires, and wants. I needed to recognize what that was, and it was an intuition. It was like, well, why did I become an actor? Because I don't mind the spotlight. Right? But it's not about me. It's about the community. It's about supporting people. It's about lifting people up. Why did I become a filmmaker? Because I wanted to tell other people's stories. Right? But then that's a different story. That's a different story. The whole thing about changing from film to being a speaker and a facilitator. Anyways, but yeah, it's just like owning your power, owning your light, and shining in that. And gaining the tools to help support you to that, but I think along that journey of healing is forgiveness. Even when you're in an argument with the people that you love, they always say, if you just say, I'm sorry, but you mean it, it goes a long ways. Mm-hmm. So I've definitely been experimenting with that, and it's a beautiful thing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your spirit, your wisdom. And you said one thing, you said many things that I did a little sticky note in my brain with, but one of the last things you said was that it's not about me, but it is about you. Also, it's about you, but you being you is about helping others rise up, in my humble estimation. That is, I know that humility is a virtue, and that many of us who are on the journey of healing and our self-awareness want to be humble, which is beautiful, but at the same time, there's no ego involved when you say, I have something to offer, and this is about me fulfilling something like a purpose, a destiny, a mission, a calling. But what's beautiful about your calling, and maybe unique to you, is that your calling is about others as well. So I just wanted to mirror that back to you, that it's okay that it is about you. I mean, you have to answer for your life when it's over. No one else gets to answer for it. And so that's a beautiful thing that hopefully all of us can answer. I did my very best, and I shared my gifts. There's no ego in that, purely in and of itself. in my opinion. And yes, forgiveness. That is,
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
of course, Pete.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is so powerful. Forgiving ourselves, especially for our trespasses, our missteps. That's where the self-love comes in, is we're not perfect. We never will be perfect, but there is a journey of accountability and self-awareness and courage, as you've said, and forgiveness. And also, when you were speaking about your process of becoming Zen or getting into that Zen mode with your jump roping and in martial arts, to me, that also speaks to the idea of a daily practice of some kind. Sure, there's a physical aspect to it, there's a mental health aspect to it, but in my opinion, there's also a spiritual aspect. And all I mean by spiritual is that we've got gifts and qualities and that we need to express. That's part of our design as a human, is to express those qualities, right? Confidence, justice, forgiveness, compassion, honesty, trust, so on and so forth. That's what I mean when I say spiritual, but it requires a practice, a daily, and for some people that's prayer, that's meditation, that is martial arts, that's dance, that's being in nature, that's journaling, can go on and on and on. But I always want to encourage and promote here that some kind of daily practice is critical to our advancement and to our healing.
Yeah.
And it keeps us in check, not from a place of like harsh self-judgment or self-hate. It just keeps us in check. Okay, yeah, okay, I can improve on that. Or I see where I was at last week or last month or last year. Okay, I'm moving forward. Great. Right? It's just, it's calling ourselves to account. We're keeping track of what we're up to, who we are.
Yeah.
And I also just want to share something personal that I was thinking about at the beginning of the conversation when you were speaking about your best friend who left you when he was young and when you were young. And you said he was your rock, and that you spoke about spiritual or just esoteric things that not everybody, especially at your age, sounded like that's what you're saying. Not everybody was talking about or reflecting on with other people their age. And it made me think about in high school, I had two best friends named Jennifer. And one of the Jennifers and I would go to the football game, Friday night football games. Yeah. And we would get ready at her house to go to the game, and we would play the local, like every town has like a local jazz station that doesn't always come in crystal clear on the dial. This was the old school radio days. And we would play jazz while we got ready. And we both loved that we were doing that, because we knew that most of our classmates were not probably listening to like jazz ever. And it was just so great that we both felt comfortable and vulnerable enough to appreciate that together. It was such a special bonding experience, but it was also a process of, we were allowing each other to be authentic and to express that. And there was no shame about that, which when you're, 17, 16, 18 years old, that's not an easy thing to accomplish with your peers. Right. And the other Jennifer, my other best friend, there was like a couple of songs that we would always play when maybe we were just hanging out at her house, and we'd, be in our socks dancing around. But it was just great. It was like, I felt like I could just be myself always. And so that is so important, to find those people in our lives, to have them. And you've had them, and I'm sure you still have those people. And it's a gift when we find each other and we can kind of accompany each other on that journey of being ourselves, even the weird things, that we might be into or want to express, the little weird, not in a judgmental way, just, that isn't something that everybody else is doing or talking about. It's so important at every stage of life. But I think when you find it like you and I did when we were young, it's even more precious, because it lets you know, oh, I can have this with people in my life. And it's such a gift. And I appreciated you sharing that. I appreciate everything you shared, but that did spark that memory for me.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad, and thanks for sharing your story, because that's fascinating to hear. I love hearing how, you know, like the connections, because as you were sharing, I was thinking of, yeah, I feel like that's, no matter who people are, it's those kind of relationships that I feel like people really cherish, like, with maybe without even knowing it, like, even like, for example, like some guys, that I know who just watch, the games, right? The sport games, right? Or as my girlfriend would say, the sport balls. um you know um and they're watching it, and they may not be connecting like how I like to connect, meaning let's have some conversation. Let's get deep into our lives. Let's challenge each other. But they're in the same spaces enjoying something. Yeah, I went to the so due to the pandemic and a post that I made about what happened to George Floyd during that time, I found myself coming back to Minnesota, where I'm from LA to Minnesota. And so I've been making my life here now. And my brother said, "Do you want to go to a Minnesota Vikings game?" I said, "Yes, like I would love that." Like I because I no longer became that person that would need to turn on the TV to watch the sport balls. Um because in LA, that was the day that we did Fight Church. That was the day that we did our martial arts in the morning. We went to a Vietnamese restaurant, had tea and food, and then me and my mentor and some of the other people would go have Starbucks. And then by the end of it, it was end of the night. um, so I no longer needed that. I changed my ritual. But my brother loves football, loves the Vikings, and they did really well this year. So it's like, yeah, let's go. And I am who I am. So in any space, I'm gonna share with you. I'm a shine that love, like whether you want it or not. Just tell me it's too much. But when it got down to the wire where they're like, like fourth down and close to the, touch, the red zone, the touchdown, I looked at the two guys, their faces were red from drinking, right? And they're just having a good time. And I was like, you know what? Like, I know this game. I'm not into it as much as before, but I'm here now. I'm in the moment. Let's get into it. And I think I almost popped a vein, like, but like I just went over and I like grabbed them and say, yeah, because I wanted them to feel enough. I wanted them to feel like they belonged. And at the same time, like I wanted to feel like I could belong with like, because I don't normally find myself in those spaces. But I just wanted to, like, that to me is what life is about now. It's about building these relationships or having these relationships, whether it's like a moment, a day, years, whatever, but it's about making that person feel enough. And so I forgot where I was going with that. but yeah, like that to me, so like those relationships. And I feel like when I think about it, the happiest or the most, even if I'm uncomfortable, but the most comfortable relationships I'm in right now are the ones where like it's not even on those other voices, right? So when you're sharing about your friends and listening to jazz and doing those things, and you can be your authentic self, right? It's like, oh, like I am being my authentic self. I just wasn't, and that's what my relationship with Des was, like it wasn't jazz. It was it went from Rage Against the Machine to Roxette to Enya We used to
Wow.
weight train, right, in his
Mm.
basement. And I'll never forget those memories because they were so unique to like, there's no one else I would ever do weight training with doing Enya. You know, it's just
Right.
not a, but in that moment, uh, my mentor uses the word submission a lot. I submitted to that moment. Granted, I was a kid, so I had no idea what I was doing anyways, but like, looking back, it's like, I just gave into the moment.
Yes.
And so I think beautiful moments and beautiful relationships are when you can submit in those moments and just be, yeah. And then you can reflect on it later, like Steve Jobs says, you can count the dots late, count the dots looking back, you can't count them forward.
Right.
So yeah.
So thoughtful and insightful. Thank you, Pete. Are there any final thoughts or words of encouragement, of inspiration that you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
um yeah, there's something very simple. I have a lot of them. You have to come to my workshop or my speaking engagements. No. But I'll give the audience, the listeners, one that I feel like is so important, that has really helped me, and at some point really helped my buddy Jacob that I was talking about when he was going through something very difficult. And I just said it to him, and he came back later and he told me like that made such a difference. And it is 3 words. No, 4 words. Feel what you feel. Okay. So let's tie it back to the shame, and we can tie it back to the shine too. So some of us may feel like all we seen in like examples of other people in our lives of expressing anger, right? Anger is an emotion. It's a feeling. But we're taught to suppress it. Or we're taught to Incredible Hulk.
Mm.
I was given the practice of just sitting with it. Okay, I'm really angry right now. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that rage. And you know what? That's healthy. That's okay. That's my primal. That's the animal inside of me. Yeah, I'm not going to suppress it. I'm not going to civilize it. I'm going to control it or tame it in such a way where I'll just use the word it's healthy. Just like crying, just like being sad. So many of us are taught, especially men, because we don't practice it. We don't practice crying, right? So if you don't practice it, you become numb to it. So you don't know how to access it. I don't know how to access that feeling anymore because I haven't practiced it. I'll practice these emotions that I'll exert these emotions that I've been practicing. So crying, we get sad. We talk about our family members. I was just talking about our parents getting old, right? Even the toughest, male or man gets sad about their parents getting old. But do they have the permission to cry about it? Do they have the courage to cry about it when they feel it? Now, part of that is also your support system. Are you going to have the people that are going to hold space for you to say, you know what, it's okay, just cry? Right? So all these feelings, being scared, being happy, celebrate celebrate you. We don't, my sister was talking about the artist's way the other day, taking your artist on a date, like celebrate. You know, whenever people send me messages and it's like something good, I always say, make sure you go celebrate. And then they get mad. Well, why do I need to celebrate? Okay, maybe you don't. I'm just putting it out there in you know, into the world. Right? Because I don't do it, because I used to not do it enough. You know, because if we celebrate only the big wins, like again, we're numbing ourselves to celebrating the small wins. You know, but if we celebrate the small wins, and those big wins are like they're like wow, you know. But I also celebrate my small ones. You know, so it's like so feel what you feel, because that moment will pass like a boat, you know, like a boat in the storm. You know, like I love that movie, The Perfect Storm. You know, yes, it had Mark Wahlberg, and yes, it had George Clooney, but like good or bad, I don't know. But like, I just love that image of that ship so small in the storm. And yeah, bad things happened. People died, but the sun came up. You know, for you know, and people have to, you know, even their loved ones had to push forward, had to move forward. Right. So, but if you resent your feelings, your emotions, you're going to hold on to that, and you're going to explode. And I think that's what's happening in the world. People do not know how to say, feel, say and feel. You know, you don't even have to say it, right? Like it can be nonverbal, but you need to express it. And what you're talking about, the ancestors, you know, um, being able to express. You know, I love that, you know, like it's so true. They give us that foundation, you know, and then we have to decide what we're going to do with it. But I always say, feel what you feel, you know, and every time I say that, people like I see them, like when I say, feel what you feel, they go, oh,
Relax.
yeah, like this gasp, like they've been holding for such a long time. And it's awesome. You know, like I love that, you know, it's like, it's some days are really awesome, and some days, wow, really suck. It's okay. It's okay. You know, don't burn yourself out. You know, let's see what tomorrow brings. Right. So I guess that's what I would like to leave.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the
Nice.
enthusiasm, the encouragement, and again, for sharing so vulnerably and openly and courageously about your journey.
Yeah.
And I always ask my guests, and I'll do that now at the end, which television show, new or old, would you recommend and why? And it doesn't have to be your favorite, but
Sure.
which do you recommend?
Yeah, I saw that question and I was like, okay. So my girlfriend Emily has like, I don't know if they're called comfort, but like shows that she can watch. I don't know how she does it. She's like, yeah, I've seen this like, you know, 15 times. Right. And I haven't even finished like, you know, a TV show, you know, like, anyways, I'm more of a movie person. But, anyways, when we started dating, there were shows that like she introduced me to. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I got sucked in. And there's shows that people talk about. But for me, again, when I practice quiet in the noise, I don't want anything to influence me. Right. So 15 years later, and I'm watching a show that was like a hit, you know? So the two shows, so we watch Parks and Rec. And then after that, The Office. Now, I like them both, but I do have to say The Office, and I think it's because of Steve Carell, the way that he portrayed Michael. There were just so many moments where I was like, you know, like, wow, like this is the kind of stuff that I would like to write, you know, or stuff that I would write, not on that caliber, but like, you know, that I love, why I love storytelling. You know, it's laughter, it's sadness, it's you know, it's surprise, it's the out of left field, you know, like where did that come from? You know, it's the Stephen Chow Hong Kong humor. It's like, why is that funny? I don't know.
Yes.
You know, but it's human.
Mm.
And I think sharing that with my girlfriend, like it was a powerful thing in our relationship because it, you know, like watching Jim and Pam, their relationship, for example, and you know, I was like, oh man, like, am I doing? Maybe I gotta up my game, you know, being, you know, Jim and that kind of stuff, or you know, stuff like that.
Mm.
But yeah, so I really like The Office. Um, I'm much more of a darker. I like darker, like crime shows, like that. She does too. Her favorite podcast is about serial killers. So, I forgot the name of it now. It's two ladies. Ah,
I won't be able
uh,
to help with the name, but I've heard
yeah,
of the show.
yeah. So she likes to put it on when she's cooking.
Wow.
And yeah, you know, and I'm like, and it's not just serial killers. It's like cases
Right.
of
The cold
yeah,
cases or
yeah,
something.
yeah, like just these cases of people getting killed, but then
Mm,
like
mm.
diving deeper into psychology
Oh,
and the
yes.
case files. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I'll just say The Office.
Okay. I think that's the first time that one's been mentioned, but
Oh yeah,
it's your take and what connects you to it is really fun to hear. So
yeah.
thank you, Pete. Thank you again for being here, for sharing your words, your heart and your spirit so openly. And I think that this will be something that this conversation will be insightful and enriching. And I hope that many people get to hear it and watch.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out, and you know, like I love getting an opportunity to do this and share, and